Hash the secrets of the MAJESTIC-12 documents. In December 1984, a package arrived at the home of a television producer named Jaime Shandera. There was no return address. Inside was a roll of undeveloped 35mm film. When developed, the film revealed photographs of what appeared to be a classified briefing document, 8 pages, typed on a manual typewriter. Dated November 18, 1952, addressed to President-elect Dwight D. Eisenhower. The subject line read, Operation MAJESTIC-12. The document described a top-secret committee formed in 1947 by order of President Harry Truman. Its purpose to investigate the recovery of extraterrestrial craft and biological entities. The committee consisted of 12 individuals, military leaders, scientists, intelligence officials. Names that anyone familiar with post-war America would recognize. The document detailed the recovery of a crashed disk near Roswell, New Mexico, and the subsequent retrieval of 4 deceased non-human beings. It outlined protocols for containment, study, and above all, secrecy. If authentic, the document proved that the United States government had recovered alien technology and had concealed that fact for decades. If fabricated, it was one of the most elaborate hoaxes in modern history, and from the moment it surfaced, the question has never been fully resolved. Because the MAJESTIC-12 documents did not arrive alone, they were followed by other papers, other memos, other files, each one raising the stakes, each one widening the mystery. And each one impossible to definitively verify or debunk. The world of 1947 was a world of secrets. The atomic bomb had been developed in absolute secrecy. The Manhattan Project involved thousands of people across multiple states, and almost none of them knew what they were building. Entire cities were constructed in remote locations. Scientists worked in compartments. Information was shared on a strict need-to-know basis. If the government could build a weapon capable of ending civilization without the public knowing, it could conceal anything. This was the lesson the military learned. Secrecy was not just possible. It was routine. By 1947, the infrastructure for compartmentalization was already in place. Special access programs, code words, clearance levels that went beyond top secret. Projects so classified that even members of Congress had no knowledge of them. Into this environment came the reports of unidentified flying objects, disks in the sky. Craft that moved with impossible speed. And then in July 1947, something fell near Roswell. The military responded immediately, material was recovered, witnesses were debriefed, and then silence. A silence that lasted for decades. But if the MAJESTIC-12 documents are real, that silence was not empty, it was managed, controlled. Enforced by a committee that operated in complete secrecy, reporting only to the president. The briefing document that arrived in Shandera's mailbox identified 12 members of the alleged MAJESTIC-12 committee. The list read like a roster of the American post-war elite. Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, the first director of the CIA, Dr. Vannevar Bush, who had overseen the Manhattan Project, General Nathan Twining, who would become chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dr. Detlev Bronk, a physiologist and science administrator, Dr. Jerome Hunsaker, an aeronautical engineer, Sidney Sowers, the first executive secretary of the National Security Council, Gordon Gray, secretary of the Army and later National Security Advisor, Donald Menzel, an astronomer and Harvard professor, General Robert Montague, commander of Fort Bliss in the White Sands Proving Ground, Lloyd Berkner, a physicist involved in post-war scientific policy, General Hoyt Vandenberg, Air Force Chief of Staff, Rear Admiral Sidney Sowers, First Director of Central Intelligence. These were not obscure figures. They were men with access to the highest levels of power, men who had shaped defense policy, scientific research, and intelligence operations. Men who, if such a committee existed, would have been the logical choices to serve on it. But that is also what makes the list suspicious. Because if you were going to fabricate a secret committee, these are exactly the names you would choose. Credible, powerful, and conveniently, by 1984, all of them were dead. The document itself is meticulously constructed. It follows the format of classified briefings from the 1950s. The language is formal, bureaucratic, precise. It includes security markings, code words, references to executive orders and national security directives. It describes the recovery operation at Roswell in detail, the crash site, the condition of the wreckage. The biological entities described as humanoid but distinctly non-human. It states that the craft was of extraterrestrial origin, that the technology was beyond current human understanding, that the existence of the craft and its occupants posed questions of profound national security importance. The document outlines the committee's mandate to study the wreckage, to contain the information, and to assess the implications of contact with a non-human intelligence. It is, in every superficial way, convincing, but superficial examination is not verification, and from the moment the document became public, experts began tearing it apart. The forensic analysis began immediately. Document examiners studied the typeface, the paper, the formatting, the signatures, and they found problems. The typewriter used appeared to be a Smith Corona model that was not widely available until the mid-1960s, more than a decade after the document was supposedly written. The paper showed no signs of aging, consistent with a document from 1952. The date format was inconsistent with military standards of the time. The security classification marking, top secret MAJESTIC only, used a term that did not appear in official documents until later. And the signature attributed to President Truman, while visually similar to known examples, showed irregularities that suggested it had been traced or copied from another document. These inconsistencies did not prove the document was a hoax, but they raised serious questions that the document's defenders had to address, and they did. They argued that the copy received was not the original, that it was a reproduction, possibly retyped in later years for preservation. That the paper and typeface inconsistencies reflected the document's duplication, not its creation. That the security markings, while unusual, could represent compartmented programs that used non-standard classification systems. These explanations were plausible, but they were not provable. Then, in 1985, another document surfaced. This one was discovered by researchers in the National Archives. It was a memo dated July 14, 1954, from Robert Cutler, Special Assistant to President Eisenhower, to General Twining. The memo referenced a briefing for the President on MJ-12 Special Studies project scheduled for July 16th. The memo was on official White House stationery. It was filed among legitimate documents from the Eisenhower administration, and it appeared to corroborate the existence of a MAJESTIC-12 project, but again, problems emerged. The memo was not logged in the official records. Cutler's schedule for that period showed he was out of the country on the date the memo was written. The formatting of the memo did not match other Cutler memos from the same period, and archivists could not explain how the document had appeared in the files. It had not been there during previous reviews. It seemed to have been inserted, whether by someone with authorized access or by an intruder was unclear. The document was classified as possibly fraudulent by the National Archives, but it was not removed. It remains in the files to this day, an anomaly, a question mark. Over the following years, more documents appeared. Memos, briefing papers, alleged communications between MAJESTIC-12 members. Some arrived anonymously in the mail, others were discovered in archives. A few were handed over by individuals claiming to be former intelligence officers. Each document added details, names of bases where the wreckage was stored, references to autopsies performed on the recovered beings, mentions of technology transfer programs, descriptions of efforts to reverse engineer the craft. And with each new document, the story grew more elaborate, more specific, and more difficult to verify, because none of the documents could be traced to an official source. None appeared in the declassified records of the agencies they supposedly originated from. None were accompanied by a clear chain of custody. They simply appeared. As if someone somewhere was leaking them. But who and why? The most disturbing aspect of the MAJESTIC-12 documents is not their content, but their behavior. They do not behave like normal leaks. Normal whistleblower documents come with context, with sources, with corroborating testimony. The Pentagon Papers were accompanied by Daniel Ellsberg, who explained why he leaked them and faced the consequences. The Snowden leaks came with Edward Snowden, who stood behind the material. The MAJESTIC-12 documents come with no one. They arrive anonymously. They provide no verification, and the people who distribute them often admit they do not know where they came from. This pattern suggests one of three possibilities. The first is that the documents are genuine, and the sources remain anonymous because disclosure would be catastrophic. That the people leaking them are still bound by secrecy oaths or fear reprisal. That the documents are being released slowly, strategically, to prepare the public for eventual full disclosure. The second possibility is that the documents are disinformation, that they were created by intelligence agencies to confuse, distract, or discredit legitimate UFO research. That they are part of a psychological operation designed to poison the well, to ensure that anyone who takes the UFO phenomenon seriously will also be associated with fabricated evidence. The third possibility is simpler, that the documents are a hoax, created by skilled forgers, distributed by true believers, and sustained by a community that wants them to be real. The problem is that all three possibilities are plausible. The US government has a documented history of creating disinformation. Operation Mockingbird involved the CIA planting false stories in the media. CONTLPRO involved the FBI fabricating documents to discredit political groups. MK Ultra involved experiments so unethical that records were destroyed to prevent exposure. If the government could do those things, it could create false documents about UFOs. But the government also has a history of concealing legitimate programs. The U-2 spy plane was denied for years. The SR-71 Blackbird was classified for decades. Stealth technology was developed in complete secrecy. If advanced craft were recovered, if non-human technology was being studied, the government would have every reason to deny it. And if someone tried to leak proof, the government would have every reason to muddy the waters, to release fake documents alongside real ones, to make verification impossible, to ensure that even genuine evidence could be dismissed as part of the noise. The individuals named in the MAJESTIC-12 documents have been scrutinized extensively. And here, the picture becomes even stranger. Because while all 12 are real historical figures, several of them have connections to UFO incidents that were documented independently. Admiral Hillenkoetter, after leaving the CIA, publicly stated that UFOs were real and that a campaign of secrecy surrounded them. He joined the board of NICAP, a civilian UFO research organization, and wrote a letter to Congress urging hearings on the subject. General Twining wrote a memo in 1947 stating that flying discs were real and not visionary or fictitious. Dr. Menzel, despite being listed as a member of MAJESTIC-12, was one of the most vocal debunkers of UFOs, writing multiple books dismissing the phenomenon. But declassified documents later revealed that Menzel held security clearances far beyond what a Harvard astronomer would typically require, that he consulted for the NSA, that he had access to compartmented programs. Why would a public skeptic have such deep ties to the intelligence community? The contradiction has never been explained. Then there is the matter of President Truman's alleged memo establishing MAJESTIC-12. The memo is dated September 24, 1947. It directs Secretary of Defense James Forrestal to proceed with Operation MAJESTIC-12 as outlined in a prior discussion. The signature appears to be Truman's. But the memo was not found in Truman's presidential library. It was not in the National Archives. It appeared in the same anonymous package as the Eisenhower briefing. Forensic analysis of the signature suggested it was lifted from a genuine Truman document and copied onto the MAJESTIC-12 memo. But even that analysis is disputed. Some experts argue the signature is consistent with Truman's hand. Others argue it is too consistent. That real signatures vary slightly each time, and this one matches known examples too perfectly. The debate has raged for decades. No consensus has been reached. What cannot be disputed is that something extraordinary happened to Secretary Forrestal. In March 1949, he resigned from his position. He was admitted to Bethesda Naval Hospital for what was described as a nervous breakdown. On May 22, 1949, he died after falling from a 16th-floor window. The official ruling was suicide. But the circumstances were strange. Forrestal's personal diaries were confiscated and not returned to his family for years. When they were finally released, sections were missing. Witnesses reported that Forrestal had become paranoid in the months before his death, that he spoke of being followed, that he believed his phone was tapped, that he made cryptic references to things he could not discuss. If Forrestal was indeed a member of MAJESTIC-12, if he was privy to the recovery of extraterrestrial craft, the psychological burden could have been immense, or his death could have been unrelated. A tragedy born of the pressures of post-war governance, but the missing diary entries ensure that we will never know for certain, and in that absence of certainty, suspicion thrives. The researchers who have pursued the MAJESTIC-12 documents are a mix of serious investigators and obsessive amateurs. Some have academic credentials, others are self-taught. What they share is a conviction that something is being hidden, that the documents, even if flawed, point toward a deeper truth. They have filed Freedom of Information Act requests. They have interviewed family members of the alleged committee members. They have cross-referenced dates, locations, and personnel records, and they have found fragments, not proof, but fragments. References in declassified documents to meetings that align with MAJESTIC-12 activities, unexplained gaps in the schedules of key officials. budget line items that cannot be accounted for, travel records that suggest coordination between the named individuals. None of this proves the committee existed, but it suggests that something involving these people at this time was happening. Something that was not part of the public record. The most compelling argument against the MAJESTIC-12 documents is their lack of official acknowledgement. If the committee existed, if it operated for decades, there should be institutional memory, budgets, personnel files, communication records, facilities, equipment. A program of this scale cannot exist without a trace, but that argument assumes that all traces are accessible, that nothing is destroyed, that all classified programs eventually surface. History suggests otherwise. The CIA's program to develop Chinese letter techniques, including mind control experiments, was nearly lost entirely when Director Richard Helms ordered the destruction of MK-Ultra files in 1973. Only a cache of financial records, misfiled and overlooked, survived to expose the program. If not for that accident, we would have no proof MK-Ultra existed. How many other programs left no trace at all? How many were so compartmented that only a handful of people knew their true nature? And how many of those people took their secrets to the grave? The alternative explanation that the MAJESTIC-12 documents are an elaborate disinformation campaign raises its own questions. Who would undertake such an effort, and why? If the goal was to discredit UFO research, the operation has been a mixed success. The documents have created division within the UFO community. Some researchers treat them as gospel. Others dismiss them entirely, but they have also kept the conversation alive. They have generated books, documentaries, and ongoing investigations. If the purpose was to bury the truth, this seems an odd strategy, unless the goal was not to bury but to obscure, to create so much noise that the signal is lost. To ensure that even if genuine evidence emerged, it would be drowned in a sea of questionable material. In that light, the MAJESTIC-12 documents are a masterstroke. They are plausible enough to be taken seriously, flawed enough to be doubted, and persistent enough to ensure that the debate never ends. There is also the possibility that the documents are a hybrid. That some elements are genuine, leaked by individuals with access, and others are fabrications added to discredit the real material. This is the most insidious scenario, because it means that within the MAJESTIC-12 corpus, there may be actual classified information, buried in forgeries, surrounded by lies, impossible to extract without access to the originals. And the originals, if they exist, are not available. They are in archives we cannot access, in safes we cannot open, protected by classifications that will not expire in our lifetimes. The government's response to the MAJESTIC-12 documents has been consistent: denial. The FBI investigated the documents in the late 1980s and concluded they were completely bogus. The Air Force stated that no such committee ever existed. The National Security Agency has no record of MAJESTIC-12 in its declassified files, but these denials are not definitive. Because if the program was compartmented at the highest levels, these agencies might not have known about it. Compartmentalization means that even within the government, information is siloed. The left hand does not know what the right hand is doing. And if MAJESTIC-12 existed as a special access program reporting only to the president, it would not appear in the records of conventional agencies. It would exist in a parallel structure, one that leaves no fingerprints. What remains after decades of investigation is uncertainty. The MAJESTIC-12 documents cannot be proven authentic, but they cannot be definitively debunked either. Every piece of evidence against them has a counterargument. Every forensic flaw has an explanation, and every official denial raises the question: would the government admit the truth if it were real? The answer, based on historical precedent, is no. The government has lied about secret programs before. It has denied operations that were later proven true. It has destroyed evidence. It has silenced whistleblowers. So when it says MAJESTIC-12 never existed, that statement carries no weight. Not because the government always lies, but because in matters of national security, it lies when it needs to. And if MAJESTIC-12 were real, denial would be the only acceptable response. The legacy of the MAJESTIC-12 documents is not clarity, it is confusion. They have spawned a cottage industry of research, speculation, and debate. They have influenced how the public thinks about government secrecy. They have become a reference point for discussions of UFOs, classified programs, and the possibility of extraterrestrial contact. But they have not provided answers. Instead, they have multiplied the questions. Who created them? Who distributed them? What is their purpose? And buried within them is their truth. These are questions without resolution, because the documents exist in a liminal space, too detailed to ignore, too flawed to trust, too persistent to dismiss. In recent years, as the government has begun to acknowledge unidentified aerial phenomena, some have wondered if MAJESTIC-12 will be vindicated. If officials will admit that a committee, perhaps under a different name, did exist to study recovered craft, but that admission has not come. Instead, the new transparency has been carefully calibrated. It acknowledges that UAPs are real, that they are encountered, that they are studied, but it stops short of confirming recovery. Short of confirming non-human origin, short of confirming any legacy program that would resemble MAJESTIC-12. The gap between what is acknowledged and what is documented in the MAJESTIC-12 papers remains vast, and that gap is filled with silence. The people who believe in the MAJESTIC-12 documents believe in them because they fit a pattern of secrecy, a pattern of denial, a pattern of information that appears, is questioned, and then fades into ambiguity. They believe because the alternative, that the documents are entirely fabricated, requires a level of coordination and skill that seems unlikely. That forging multiple documents, planting them in archives, maintaining the deception for decades, all without a clear motive, strains credibility. The people who dismiss the documents dismiss them because extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and the evidence upon examination is not extraordinary, it is questionable, flawed. Unverifiable, both positions are reasonable, both are defensible, and that is the true genius of the MAJESTIC-12 documents. They exist in a state of permanent ambiguity. They can never be proven. They can never be disproven. They are Schrödinger's secret, both real and fake until the box is opened, and the box will never be opened. What the MAJESTIC-12 documents reveal, more than anything else, is the architecture of modern secrecy. They show how information can be controlled not by suppressing it, but by flooding the zone. By releasing material that is half true, half false, and entirely unverifiable. By creating a hall of mirrors where every reflection is distorted and nothing can be trusted. If you wanted to hide a real secret, this is how you would do it, not by locking it away, but by surrounding it with lies. So many lies that the truth becomes indistinguishable. So much noise that the signal disappears, and anyone who tries to find the truth is left holding documents that might be real, that might be fake, that might be both. With no way to tell the difference, the film that arrived at Jaime Shandera's home in 1984 has never been traced. The envelope had no return address, no postmark that could identify its origin. It simply appeared, and in the 40 years since, no one has come forward to claim responsibility. No whistleblower has confirmed its authenticity. No forger has confessed to creating it. It exists in the world as a mystery, and mysteries once released take on a life of their own. They grow, they evolve, they resist resolution. The MAJESTIC-12 documents are no longer just 8 pages photographed on film. They are a phenomenon, a conspiracy, a belief system, and they will endure as long as people believe that secrets exist. That governments hide the truth, that somewhere in a vault or a filing cabinet or a buried archive, the real story is waiting to be found. Whether that belief is justified is another question. One that the MAJESTIC-12 documents cannot answer, because they are not answers. They are questions disguised as evidence, shadows disguised as substance. And in the space between what they claim and what they prove, the mystery lies, unsolved, unresolved, and perhaps by design unsolvable.